Against all odds, there is a belief amongst humans that persists through generations. That mastery over the mind and the senses can bring through years of tireless devotion, immortality. It's in the eyes of those that watch, and in the hands of those that make themselves remembered for their feats of glory, inspiration, and self-sacrifice. They never back down. They leave it all on the battlefield.
All it takes is one punch from Splice. G2 still fighting for the top spot. Triple kill. Quadruple. It may not be pretty, but a win is a win.
Because they were built on the idea that with suffering comes learning, and with learning, evolution.
Last split we got third. This split we have to do better.
The whole split we've been playing catch up, but at this point people have to come to us and beat us.
We're going to try everything in our power to make worlds, otherwise this was just a wasted year for all of us.
I can't wait to show people how strong we can be.
The thing we have that no one else has is that we've won 4 in a row. The G2 Dynasty is to win, and we will make sure to keep winning.
Last split, this split, it wasn't the greatest times. We got Kikis and we're so much better.
Pausing for the last split, and the winner is going to be the exact same too.
G2 and on your spring split champions.
3 rookies prove themselves worthy of the top 4 in the EU LCS.
A double kill from Perch. This guy is a madman. He can do it. Oh, Memento, you beautiful man.
Gets the quadra. Gonna be a picture for Tommy.
It's time to find out who will rise. This is the EU LCS. Welcome back to Berlin, Germany, in the EU LCS Summer Playoffs. There's one spot in the semifinals left, and today G2 Esports and Misfits Gaming will fight for a chance to play on stage in Madrid. There are our heroes of the night. I'm EpicSkillshot supporter, joined by Martin the Fisher, Lunge, and Trevor Quickshot Henry.
Not your heroes of the night.
Also my heroes of the night. I like it. A bit of an OG crew, which is a euphemism for old.
That's the truth. Absolutely the case.
Here. Yeah, definitely. Yes. But I'm looking forward to seeing what we have in store today. Yesterday, though, was super interesting. Splice and Schalke, they kicked off the summer playoffs with what can only be described as a dramatic series. 5 games. Guys, why don't you break down what happened for us?
Well, I want to start with the mid lane then, because we had Nukeduck against Niski. I think this was one of the lanes we were all really excited about.
Well, you definitely were.
I was very excited, of course. Seeing Niski, by the way, get ahead in these games and then solo killing Nukeduck, that was a great start to the series, and I was surprised.
It didn't only happen once, though. Xerxes kept getting Niski ahead, and then Niski kept killing Nukeduck. I have to admit, I was about to tear up that ticket for Year of the Duck, because...
It was Year of Niski in the first couple of games.
Playoff buff. It didn't help him win the series, though, unfortunately. It wasn't didn't manage to pull through. My eyes weren't upset. I really liked his Kai'Sa play. I was really impressed, especially towards the latter half of the series. His Ezreal games earlier left a little bit to be desired, and I wasn't sure if we were going to see that same over-eager decision-making that has cost upset in Schalke in the past.
He's definitely flashing forward a lot.
Yes.
And I mean, come on, it is an aggressive summoner spell. You can use it to get closer and actually kill people. I love the fact that he learned the Ezreal was not the answer.
Yes.
Kai'Sa instead was going to be the champ to play. Last 2 games, he was the big carry. And when they really needed him to step up, as a young player, as a guy they've actually built this team around, he managed to do it, and I think that was a big deal.
I didn't think he was going to. I thought Schalke after game 3 or 4 were probably going to tilt out and Splice were going to take it. They didn't. If we look at the whole series, though, go back to game 1, the backdoor call. I got to ask Upset at the end of the day in the interview, like, what was communication like when you see this teleport starting by Nukeduck and Upset? And he claims it was calm and collective. We need to verify that, but it was one hell of a bold move.
It was 4.5 seconds of being scared that you get interrupted and die, because then the game is over and Splice will win. The fact that it actually worked was a great call from them. I think it was a good start for Schalke, where maybe they weren't supposed to win game 1.
Yeah.
They were supposed to win game 5, and that's the only thing that actually mattered towards the end. Because once we got so far into the series, they played a great split push game. They never allowed Copy to get into a team fight, and I think in the end, Schalke, they showed that this was obviously a very even series, but they were the slightly better team.
Game 5, when Amazing got first blood in the top lane with Jarvan, I sort of went, hey, he's figured out how to play early game now. Better late than never. And I think it was one of the deciding factors.
It
that got
almost
them
seems
winning.
like all the players except for Nukduk, who was really good in those first couple of games, were just getting over the stage jitters. Amazing also said, well, I have so much experience and still I was stressed. So it's really great for Schalke that they were able to overcome everything and find themselves now in the semifinals against Vitality. We'll talk a bit about that matchup later. It's going to be very exciting, but I do want to point out the reseeding. So because Vitality was the lowest seed of the 2 semifinal teams, or the bye teams, Schalke 04 is going up against them, which also means that up versus the highest seed Fnatic is the winner of G2 or Misfits, as they are the lowest remaining seeds. Now, I also want to ask you guys about the competitiveness of playoffs. To me, the fact that this went all the way to 5 games, it was so close, it could have even been Splice picking it up, just confirms what we thought before the playoffs. These teams are very evenly matched.
If you look at all 6 rosters, it is the most stacked lineups we've ever had together in this top 6.
Yep.
We always have one team where we kind of like, nah, they don't have a chance, they can't make it far. But here you can make a case for everyone. Splice showed that yesterday as the lowest seed, they could still go 5 games. And I think Misfits G2 today, it could easily be 5 games.
It's the EU Super 6, it's that simple.
That it is. We'll have to see
Nice
what
hashtag.
G2 and Misfits do today, but it's going to be Vitality versus Schalke. Our first semifinal will be on Friday, the 31st of August, and Yamato Cannon will lead his team to stage as they continue their road to Madrid. Now, before we look at that matchup a little more in depth, there is one mystery that needs an answer, and who better to solve it than everyone's favorite detectives?
Around the world, 2 names are fabled and held above all others. 2 men able to decipher the indecipherable, to fathom the unfathomable, to solve the unsolvable. Together, we are a decisive duo whose genius knows no bounds. Together, we are Medias and Medias.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is us once again here to bring you another adventures. I, Detective Edius, are joined by the wonderful Dr. Medius. How are you, my fine fellow?
Oh, jolly spiffing, old hat. I am perfectly well today, and I am most delighted to present our newest revelation, the mystery of Vitality's winning streak.
Oh, I believe the answer lies in Yamato's shirts. We need to determine the root of his shirt fascination, but to do that, we must look back at the off-season.
That far back? That is a very, very long time ago. Almost a year has passed.
Many mysteries can be solved if we look far enough back, but some mysteries must remain. Now, the first garment we must investigate is this fine shirt. Inconspicuous at first, it holds many great depths.
Verius, this is cock-a-hoop cockamamie. This is ludicrous. It's a piece of fashion. It is nothing more than that.
Fashion, yes, but a meaning hides deeper within. Tell me, Dr. Medius, what animals do you see?
Dr. Medius, I'm not a veterinarian, Medius. At best, I can see a zebra.
This is why, of course, you're not a veterinarian. Zebra? I think not. Although it may disguise itself as a zebra, that is actually an okapi!
Okapi?
An okapi!
Okapi!
It is only found in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
But why would Tomato Canyon need to go all the way to Africa?
To discover the truth within himself. During this time, he was out searching, slowly discovering that no animal can change its stripes. In the same way a team cannot change who they are.
Oh, so that's why Vitality run it down mid.
That is quite right. That's why they run it down mid. Now, moving on to our next, because this is only the beginning of the journey. Tell me, what do you see in this second shirt?
Oh, it's another potato cannon classic. I see color, I see vibrancy. I'm almost blinded by the amount of
much color
in this shirt by itself. Ooh, what is this? Is that a bear?
Quite right!
Oh!
He journeyed to Russia! And under the dying woods of autumn, he spent 2 months mothering 2 poor, dying, orphaned bears who lost their mother in a devastating unicycle accident. During this time, he learned the power of parenting and the joy of a young one's smile.
It's truly a heart-wrenching story, dear Verius, but we now have Russia and we have Africa. Where did he go next?
Well, dear Medius, what does this shirt remind you of?
Oh, It's a bright one, to say the least. I'm thinking sunset, I'm thinking beaches, I'm thinking lounges, I'm thinking waves.
You're thinking Canada, aren't you, Dr. Medius? That is exactly right.
Canada, yes, sure, Canada.
Yes. This, my friend, is the peonia flower.
Oh, the peonia flower. Why, that is the most popular flower in Canada. What is he doing with this?
Well, my friend, it is elementary. He meditated, of course. He sat in a Canadian meadow, and as the wind softly caressed his cheek, he learned the beauty of stillness and the sound of a whisper.
Pardon?
The sound of a whisper. Dr. Medius, the sound of a whisper.
So, that was his plan. Kamato Yanyan explored the world to learn more about himself and to become the best coach he could ever be.
Yes, quite right,
Off
my
with
good
it.
friend. But that is not all. Behold!
Oh, wait. These are the 3 locales, the 3 places that Yamato went.
You're quite right, Medius. And if we triangulate their position, where does it all lead?
My God's gasp, is that? It cannot be!
Yes, Dr. Medius, it is Spain, Madrid. He knew this journey would ultimately lead him here. And that is the story of Yamato and his shirts. With that, my work here is done.
Well, another day, another case concluded by the magnificent Medius. And Vedius.
Detective Vedius.
Detective Vedius. If you have a mystery to be solved, contact us via telegram, or, if you prefer, carry a pigeon. For now, I bid you adieu.
Oh, well then, I think it's decided Vitality will definitely be going to Madrid. We know that much, but wow, you know what? I think we don't want to break whatever the wall with the viewers and whatever, but that was great. We need
that
to
was
commend our colleagues,
absolutely
Medius
amazing.
and Vedius.
I don't know how they solve it because I could not for the life of me understand Yamato's shirts.
Me neither.
And I never knew there was so much complexity and depth.
Me neither.
Detective Vedius.
Luckily for us, Yamato will be joining us later as a guest analyst to cover Misfits versus G2.
I hope he watches that.
I hope he can confirm it's actually true.
I hope so. And if he and his team, Vitality, want to get to the final, they will need to take down yesterday's winners. Schalke, let's preview that first semifinal that is locked in briefly because it is a hype one. We have Attila versus Upson. I think in general, there are so many rivalries across the board.
There really is. Both of these guys come into the 2018 season as young 80 carries with something to prove. Upset tripped in spring, but he's picking himself back up in summer. And one of the other things is both of these guys are going to be first-time finalists. One of them will be a first-time finalist.
We have a new
Neither Vitality nor Schalke's organizations have been in the final. And with some of the history that these guys have, they've played against one another a whole lot. It's going to be extremely exciting.
Some confidence as well now, especially from the Vitality guys. But we also know with Schalke, making it this far here, their first playoff into a semi-final, like they're looking to go all the way. And I think that a lot of the matchups, not only 80 carry-wise, I'm also looking at the junglers. Kikis on Vitality is like the opposite of Amazing because Kikis is in your face 24/7. He wants to fight you all the time. Amazing is playing for the team. I'm not sure if that's going to work against Vitality. We'll have to see.
Amazing yesterday was on PGL and just said straight up, I don't like him.
I loved it.
I loved it.
They're
too cocky. I don't like him. But, I mean, if we look at Amazing also and Kick is both 2 players that have struggled, that have been to the world scene and back into the finals and won finals. And now
relegation with Mysterious Monkeys to now in the semi-final together. I mean, it's a great story.
It is a great story. That'll be our first semi-final. We'll find out who will play Fnatic after today. And the road to Madrid continues, but also the road to the World Championship in South Korea continues as well. And just as a reminder, there are 3 ways for a team to qualify for the World Championship. First up, simple enough, first seed is winning the summer playoffs, win that final in Madrid, and you are golden. The second spot is earned through having the highest championship points. Then you go through a second seed, and there is still a third chance. That is when you're knocked out of playoffs, you'll be qualified for the regional qualifiers, aka the Gauntlet.
Yeah, and of course, the reason for that, the 6 teams that are taking part in the summer playoffs are the 6 teams that will be competing for those 3 seeds. If we look at the championship points table, you'll notice up at the top, Splice are now locked in at 70 championship points. They cannot get any more because they lost yesterday. So once this table concludes at the end of the Madrid playoffs, we'll have our first and second seed, thanks to summer finalists, plus the championship points. And then whoever is left of those 4 teams gets seeded into that regional qualifier bracket.
You can also see with the points, the Fnatic currently say number 1, which actually means if G2 lose today, Fnatic are guaranteed to go to Worlds as either the first or the second seed because they simply cannot lose having the most points. And there's also a chance to, of course, win the entire split and then they're automatically getting #1.
Yeah, and just as a little quick stat, they will be the 4th team to go to World Championships, joining KT, Flash Wolves, and Ascension Gaming, assuming
Does that
G2
qualify
lose.
as a quick stat?
It
now?
does
You just named
indeed.
I feel like
teams.
anything is suddenly
I
a quick
get to call
stat.
any stat I want a quick stat because I delivered it.
right.
But I think it is interesting if G2 go out, that at least like Fnatic are going to be their fans. But it's going to be a tough series, and Misfits really have to step up to make
Well,
that
this
happen.
is why it's so interesting to watch playoffs, because even Splice with yesterday, they had a very valiant performance against Schalke, and they do need to pick themselves back up and not linger on that loss too long, because they need to come back and play the gauntlet, and then everything goes, and everyone can really still make it to Worlds.
I mean, we've seen teams make some insane runs in the gauntlet, both in NA and in Europe. So you want to get the highest seed possible, so you only play 1 BO5 at the end of that regional qualifier. You don't realistically have to go through, or you don't want to go through all 3. But I think at this point, if you're a Splice, you got to be confident you can actually beat anyone if you play your own game. And I think maybe yesterday they're going to be very disappointed they actually didn't.
Definitely. That's what we'll see in a couple of weeks, how they can regroup. But before we get to Worlds, there is a lot more action happening in EU Masters with the teams in the Forge of Champions fighting to represent the United Kingdom. So who better to talk about it than QuickShot?
Yeah, of course, the South African in the room. Now, Forge of Champions is actually, it's a new open tournament, Shocks. The structure changed in 2018. It used to be called the UK Premiership, and now over 100 teams over multiple stages have competed in these different competitions. And I actually have a tournament bracket that I can break down for you. XL versus Misfits is a matchup I'm excited for. I got to see both of these teams at EU Masters in spring. And, you know, from over 100 teams down to the 8 former UK Premiership teams, and now the 8 teams from the stage bracket, we're all the way through to
Yeah,
finals.
I also have my Diablos Esports versus Enclave Gaming. Have to see, because the winner gets to go to EU Masters, which is very, very big.
That's it. And of course, the finals are going to be in Barcelona, 5th and 6th of September. I have a clip, actually, of Shikari dumpstering XL. And Defisho, you should recognize some of these names, because during EU Masters in spring, you and I were talking a lot about some of the XL players you can see currently getting beaten.
Because every single time they play a tournament, a lot of the UK people are trying to convince me that these guys can actually win the whole thing. Now, they didn't during the EU Masters, but I still find it very fun to follow because a lot of banter in the UK scene going on. And I think with XL, like, they are probably the best bet.
Yes.
But Misfits Academy could take them down.
Well, we'll have to see who shows up. And then, like you said, Shocks, the winner of Forge of Champions will represent the United Kingdom at EU Masters, which starts on the 10th of September. That's immediately after our Madrid finals. They have their play-ins into groups into knockouts.
Yeah, let's see if they can back up the bants that they throw out and how they
Maybe
perform.
for once.
Hey, they made top 8, so back up.
They didn't win. They only made top 8. They didn't
win.
win.
You could define if that counts.
Well, great stuff, but I think now we have to hone in on the most important matchup of the day here in EU LCS. We are 12 minutes away from the EU LCS Summer Playoffs quarterfinal, G2 versus Misfits. Ooh, this is going to be a great one, and let's start with the story of G2 Esports. They are the 4-time EU LCS champions who came into 2018 with a brand new lineup, and they had to replace some big names.
Oh yeah, I mean, Sven and Mithy leaving from the bottom lane, European legendary players, Tricked double MVP leaving from the jungle, and then Expect up in the top lane, who found his form towards the end of this G2 lineup in 2017. And we have to remember, they won 4 LCS titles, they made the final at MSI, playing against SKT, and I think we as European fans have gotten a lot of great memories from G2 Esports and the old lineup they had. But with the new one, it's just a completely brand new team.
Yeah, very memorable. Some positive, some negative if you take the whole career. But
Let's not talk about Worlds.
I want to go back to the 4-time champion. They're the only team to have won 4 consecutive titles in a row. They made that final in spring. And Shocks, you were talking about the fact that they had to rebuild this roster. And the guy that remained was Perks. This is his team. And Defisho, when we were leading up to this, it wasn't only the players, but the coaching staff, the support staff, the analysis staff. They were all gone. The one thing that remained was Perks.
Yeah, in that clean slate.
And he built it. He still got them to finals in spring.
He also had a lot of expectations on his shoulder because it was going to be up to him to also shape that team. And I think when we look at spring, we didn't have the highest expectations. And who would when you lose Sven and Mithy, when you lose 2-time MVP Trick? But against all odds, on the back of Perks and actually on the back of a lot of the members stepping up, they made it to the final once again in spring.
Yeah, and of course you can see some of these plays that have happened throughout the 2018 season. I mean, this Baron steal a little bit earlier, we saw the snipe with the Zoe threading the needle. I remember thinking back to the quarterfinals last summer split where it was Perks' Cassiopeia flank that actually won them the game in that game 5. You know, this is the guy that has that X factor, that magical ability that can win you games in series.
And it's almost a little bit unfair that a very young player who's only actually now in his 3rd pro year is suddenly put in a situation where he has to be the captain. He has to make sure everyone knows exactly how they're supposed to play the game. And then he also has to be the guy making the big plays on the team because they can't always rely on a Wonder top lane or Yanan in the bottom lane. And that's kind of the story with G2 and why we always focus so much on Perk specifically. Because when he's doing well, this G2 lineup can actually win games against anyone.
And that is why I'm looking at what he can do in these playoffs. Because now it's been almost a year where he's worked with this team and probably put a lot of responsibility into leveling up that team. I hope now G2 finds themselves at a comfortable level enough that Perks himself is able to step up beyond what we've seen from the regular season. His time to shine.
It is his time to shine. If he's going to do it, he needs the guy right next to him to perform very well, and that is Jankos in the jungle, because you can't win mid lane on your own. No. Jankos and Perks, when I looked at this lineup originally when it was created, I said, wow, that could be the best 2v2 duo we have in Europe. If it's an aggressive meta, if Jankos can play ganking junglers, they can be insane. Playing through mid is a very good strategy at the moment. This is the playoffs for Jankos to show that he can be a consistent early game force and get Perks ahead.
And if he gets Perks ahead, we will see it on the POV stream because we will be broadcasting Perks' point of view on twitch.tv/RiotGames2. That'll go up in just a bit. As said, we're about 8 minutes away from the start of the quarterfinal when Perks and G2 face off against Misfits Gaming. What a story we have here for Misfits Gaming. They started off the year with a new roster, also losing some big names and making some new choices, and they didn't get to playoffs. But in the beginning of summer, they did great. They went 9-0.
Yeah, 9-0, fantastic. Stop it right there. Yeah. Everything is great if you're a Misfits fan.
That's half the picture, Deficio.
That is sadly only half the picture, because the other half, we saw a change in how they tried to play the game. It was no longer around Hansama and Mickey in the bot lane. They tried to go top lane, tried to focus more on Senkooks in mid, and it never really worked for these guys, because when they fell behind and didn't show us that perfect, clean early game, they didn't know what to do. And that's why going into playoffs, there's a lot of concerns. When you enter as 2-7 in the second half.
I actually want to visualize it because we actually have some graphs that I can help show you. First and foremost is every single game. Green lines all the way from weeks 1 through 5. Then Wukong caps that broke Misfits back, and Spirit in the middle of week 5 started this cascading tumble. And the back half of the split, Misfits had the same record as H2K. Right, let that sink in for a second, right? That is how the team that went 9-0 faltered. Now, if we look at this next graph, take a look at the gold differences. What you're going to notice is the up and down differences. Green lines will be your positives in all of the wins. The stark contrast from the positive to negative. It's not like they were losing close games. It's not like there were games where Misfits got crushed and absolutely obliterated. It was a polar opposite of the 9-0 start.
That it was, and I think when you see it in this way, it is even more concerning. You mentioned the early game. In the first half, it was all about Misfits being a great early game team, picking up tons of kills at 15 minutes, very proactive in taking towers. But when they lost all that, everything went down with it.
Yeah, and that's actually the impressive thing about the second half, the red lines, how when you see them drop under the line where it says 0, so when they start falling behind in gold, they don't come back.
No.
It's so rare they actually manage to turn the games around, and that's why I think we saw Misfits return to the old style in the last week of the regular season, week 9. They went back to playing aggressive bot lanes. Mickey was back in the lineup. It wasn't Jessis playing. Now it backfired because these two guys fell behind, and that's the key for Misfits in this series. The bot lane cannot lose. They have to win.
I was just going to say, is it all doom and gloom for Misfits? This is a team, when we've always discounted them, came back and did better than we thought they would in best of 5s. Stylistically, what are we looking at? Where are their chances?
I think Misfits have great chances in this series, and I hope this clip does not suddenly burn me once we're done here today. But I look at how they will play against G2, which is super aggressive bot lane picks, and then have Maxlow and Senkooks focus on this bottom lane. And G2 Esports, they don't help Yanan and Wadid. They often leave them alone, which is the perfect style for Misfits to play against.
Before I forget, sorry, you guys at home also get to vote. We're going to live tally it here in chat. Spam MSF or G2 if you think either is going to win. Sorry about that.
No, I mean, I think I really want to just, go back to the Jankos point you're talking about and where he's going to spend his time, because I think that could be one of the areas that G2 could falter. Jankos in recent weeks has been this coin flip jungler. Jankos in history has been a jungler that has not always shown up in playoffs. This is a guy who has cracked under pressure, and I don't know what version we're going to see today. I don't know how he's going to adapt. It's 8-16 now for both of these teams to adapt to. And going up against Maxlaw in that jungle matchup, whoever's going to get some sort of advantage early can really be a catalyst to get the rest of the lanes ahead.
I agree. As we see what the guys at home, the guys and girls are voting for, MSF or G2. Yeah, I'd like to come back to that jungle matchup indeed. 50-50. You don't know what you're going to get with Jankos. And when G2 was the winningest, when they won a lot of games in the beginning of the split, all the advantages, the gold advantages, came through the duo of Perkz and Jankos. So this is what we want to see again, because that's such a big catalyst for the team.
I mean, it is. I mean, so he was on Brom duty for a lot of the starter split.
Probably looked the best then.
Yeah, he actually did.
Combined the goals.
Exactly. When he's had to play, you know, different kind of junglers, it's not always been great. I think actually when he's played things like Talia, he's looked very, very good. So it might be a series where G2 will find 1 or 2 specific picks for him, and then it's Misfits' job to figure out, okay, how do we remove these picks? Because Maxlaw is a guy who's shown in the past that he's willing to play a lot of different things. And he does play different styles. He's not just an early game jungler. He can actually play big tanks, go towards late game. So there's a bit more flexibility on the Misfits side. But I think there's more explosiveness from G2 and Jankos.
And TLDR, both these junglers are not happy with themselves in the last couple of weeks, so they are going to show up here and want to show that they are worth more than they have shown going into playoffs. Second and final thing I want to touch on in terms of matchup specific, you touched on it already, the bottom lane.
Yes.
Hansama versus Yarnan, and also Wadid versus MikiX. How big of a discrepancy are we expecting here?
Again, because we have one team who heavily focuses on playing around bot lane and one team who does not, the difference should be big in this series if Misfits wants to win. I think Hansama is individually a fantastic player, but he needs people around him to set him up to succeed. And who's right next to him? It's Mickey. And I'm actually looking at Mickey as a potential MVP of this series if Misfits win, because I think this patch, Tahm Kench is nerfed. That's the counter to Mickey's supports, because he plays aggressive playmakers. That's gone right now. He can pick so many different things in bot lane.
After last week, do you think MikiX is going to be the difference?
Yes, because last week he had a mid laner and an enemy jungler sitting in his lane, killing him at level 4, 5, and 6. Doesn't happen today.
See, I was a little less on board this story or this nonsense that Fisher is trying to get fans to agree with.
The Mickey hype train
because I didn't really buy into the fact that Misfits will break that funk. After seeing yesterday's games, after seeing the tempo, after seeing the picks and bans, I actually start to believe Fisher a little bit more. I start to feel like these are some benefits that lean into the Misfits camp that potentially set Misfits up to, you know, cause an upset here.
Well, let's not lie, it's still going to be an upset. I mean, even if you look at the relative peak performances of G2 in the second half of the split and Misfits, you would give it to G2 Esports. You still wanted in...
Well, just specifically with G2, a lot of people will say there's a huge advantage in the mid lane.
Yeah.
And we've already talked about Perkz. Senkux is a person in the second half who's not been doing very well.
Yeah, but if first half Senkux shows up, that's an exciting match.
It's something that's necessary, but if Perkz is able to dominate mid, he can then go bot lane and stop Misfits from winning there. And suddenly, the mid lane matchup becomes the most important.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it just depends who shows up. I have so many questions. These are two teams that in the last few weeks gave me more questions without providing me confidence in how they're going to play. And that's what I'm going to find out in the first and second game of the series.
That's a great point, and it all comes down to this for them as well. Misfits didn't even make playoffs. Now they are so close to doing so much better. They want to get to Madrid. They want to play on that big stage, and they want to get as many points as possible to go to Worlds and play in that regional qualifier. And G2, Perkz, this is not a guy you expect not to see at Worlds.
The fans feel how we feel, by the way. This is not a convincing vote, but it's because there's too many questions.
Without further ado, then let's see our predictions. Let's take a look.
I hate this part because...
I voted for Misfits. I am quite actually... It's so hard because it's definitely 55-45, but the fact that yesterday I saw so many pure AD carry, late game team fights, upset going off, I think Hansama can do that, and I think MikiX can be very creative in that support role, get on those champions where he can roam again and create the advantage, but that's discounting anything else that could happen on the map.
To do it super short, I go Misfits 3-2. I think there are more games where they win through the bottom lane than there's games where G2 win through the mid lane. So I give it to Misfits, but it's not going to be an easy one.
I am with the fans. I am G2 3-1. I think there are too many cracks in Misfits gameplay, and I don't believe they can fix the last 4 weeks of struggles they've had. So I just think G2 are more solid, and that's why they're going to take the series.
Yeah, we will check back in after game 1, and everything's going to be turned on his heads because that is what playoffs and best of fives are all about. It's been an incredibly back and forth split for G2 and Misfits, but today they look to reignite their dreams of lifting the EU LCS trophy.
When your history is defined by victory, faltering at the first step is nothing but failure.
It's not possible for me to not make the Worlds. I'm just way too good to not be the Worlds.
During playoff, I will show you my true potential. I can't wait to show to people how strong we can be.
I want to show the Polish fans who is the best Polish jungler.
We're going to try everything in our power to make the worlds, otherwise this was just a wasted year for all of us.
The thing we have that no one else has is that we've won 4 in a row. The G2 dynasty is to win, and we will make sure to keep winning.
G2 still fighting for the top spot here.
9-0 at the halfway point of the split. GG Misfits.
Against all these teams, we have a 1-1 record. I don't like draws, I like winning.
It's all or nothing. We will make the finals.